We're closing out the year, so here's my top 10 tips of 2018. So a couple of these tips are new things I picked up this year that I'm going to be working on moving forward, and then a couple are oldies but goodies, but they actually came up this year, so I wanted to bring them up again. The first one, and I don't think I'm going to get tired of saying this one, is dressing for immersion, making sure people around you that are going to be paddling with you are also dressed for immersion. And then also, if you're going to be out in colder conditions, always bring a dry change of clothes, hopefully in a size slightly larger so that other people can use it in the case of an emergency. We actually had a couple of cases this year of paddlers that were not dressed appropriately. It was a great thing that others in the group had not only extra clothes to share, but also tying this into the second tip, which is also extremely important in cold weather, to have hot liquids with you. Hot tea, hot cocoa, hot coffee can make a huge hot soup, can be of great help when trying to warm someone up. There were a couple of times we were out surfing in colder water, and so I was upside down quite a bit, and during our breaks on the beach with wind, it was always really nice to have something warm to drink to warm up while we were taking a break. And for the dreary cold days that we spent in Maine, being warm thanks to that hot tea made a huge difference in mood going back into the water when we knew it was going to be rainy and cold the rest of the day. One more thing to add to hot beverages: most people use some kind of thermos, but what my friend Felix always does, which a couple of other buddies have done, is he'll put a neoprene sleeve on his thermos, so that helps the thermos as well. Saying is, I almost always use an IKEA bag to take some of the bulkier items to the kayak, and then I can shove that IKEA bag right into a hatch and then place the thermos on top, because I also like having the IKEA bag keep things kind of from sliding around in the hatch. But I think having the thermos not directly touch the hole and therefore the cold water, I think also helps in keeping liquids warm, as well as keeping some of those batteries that will drain fast in cold weather, maybe having a bit of padding so that it's not directly touching that hole. Number 3 I picked up during my time out in San Francisco Mendocino with fantastic group of coaches, and that is, if you're going to be launching in surf, landing in surf, or playing in areas with rough water or near rocks, the last thing you want is for a bigger set to come through and for you not to know how that area is going to behave. So hanging out in a safe location, waiting so that you see the bigger sets, what are they doing? Is it really safe for you to go in there and play? Same thing with launching, same thing with landing. I learned a lot of lessons with launching and landing this year, and all of them were tied to having patience in watching those sets. Number 4, when traveling overseas for outdoor adventures, especially in sports like kayaking or other outdoor activities that have a lot of equipment, a lot that has to be fitted to you specifically, try to take as much as you can actually with you on your carry-ons or in your day bags, because a lot of times bags will not make it to the destination, and almost always we are very short on time from the moment you land to when the adventure starts. And if you have something specific for you and it doesn't get there on time, it just makes things a lot harder. So for me, my dry suit layers I wear underneath, I like the way my PFD is set up to carry all of my camera gear, and then the things that could be replaced at a moment's notice, like a sleeping bag or a tent or even a skirt, that's not as big a deal as the main stuff that I want with me. So that I try to carry with me every time. The next 2 tips are campfire related. The first one, I don't remember if I picked this one up on our trip to Norway or on a bushcraft video or one of the books I've been reading, but the idea is to make what is known as feather sticks. They go by other names too. Now, I tried doing this here on a 2x4 just to show you, and it just doesn't work as well. Imagine these were much longer shavings. That catches a lot faster, and then it makes it a little easier for the flames to then make the bigger pieces catch. And I know everyone has a different style to get their wood started. I have found that this has been helpful when trying to get the bigger pieces, especially if they're wet, or to catch a little bit better, that you don't have to cut them all and then try to pile them on. The shavings themselves can interlock or create that space for the flames to make their way through, as well as lots of air for the fire to breathe. The 6th one I definitely picked up in Norway. It was really cool to see how both Christopher and Matt are very big advocates of leaving no trace behind. If the areas where you're landing or where you're camping or where maybe you're creating your fire happens to be nice big flat rocks, not to make a fire right on the rock. We would gather lots of little rocks, make a bit of a basket to hold that fire and all of the firewood, and then when the fire was done, we dispersed those rocks. Because the two things that can happen is, one, with a fire just flat on the rock, there's a very good chance you will leave a trace. That fire will leave a mark on the rock. But number two, because of the temperature change between the fire, or if it's a really cold night, it could potentially create a crack in the rock. If we're not leaving trash behind, let's not damage what's already there. So no harm done to that particular location. Number 7, Ben, our coach in Maine, with the tip of addressing issues before they became bigger issues later down the line. So fixing a skeg, fixing a rudder before you go out paddling in high winds, or making sure our first aid kit is there, or our VHF radio is charged. So the idea of addressing those things now, where it might just take a couple of minutes, rather than them becoming bigger issues later down the line. And I did an entire big video about it, and you can see it here. This next one's from Jeff out in Mendocino, which was taking little strokes to get on a wave when surfing, because taking big, powerful strokes was moving my kayak around side to side, and the moment that wave was able to catch an edge, whoop, it would turn me right around. So lots of little strokes just to gather speed, stay straight, and then I'm in control of where I want to go next and when I want to turn from side to side. There's another tip that I talked about recently in a forward stroke video that I'm definitely going to continue using moving forward. The next two are also from Maine, this one from Ben as well, which was a really great nugget. He had us check how many strokes it took us to go from nothing to cruising speed, then from cruising speed to sprinting, and then he related it to other instances where it would be good for us to know that knowledge. If I know how many strokes it takes me to go from barely moving to sprinting, that helps me plan how far in advance I need to start paddling to get going to catch that wave. How often do we try to get on a wave and the wave goes by us because we didn't pick up enough speed? And that's usually because we didn't start paddling early enough. However, if you know that it takes you a certain amount of strokes to really get to that speed, you know you better start paddling earlier than you think to catch that wave. So it was really cool how that tip could actually be used in so many different scenarios. So thank you, Ben, for that one. And this one was also in Maine, and this one was with Todd. And this is another example of why symposiums or other gatherings of lots of instructors are so great, because you never know the nuggets of information you're gonna walk away with. The first day we were supposed to go out and play in rough water, but it was beautiful and it was calm. And an exercise Todd had us work on was, let's say I'm gonna do a side slip or a stern rudder or even a sculling draw. You're supposed to rotate to face your work every time so that you keep that strong paddler box in front of you. Now this is what I've always done, and I'm sure lots of other paddlers do the same thing, but if I'm gonna rotate to the right, I usually push with that right foot on the right peg so that I try to push as much as I can, rotate, face my work. Todd had us play with pushing with the opposite foot instead, so that it opens up the hip that you're going to be using and it lets you rotate even further. The first couple of times I tried it, it didn't really make sense and I didn't see it working. And all of a sudden later in the day when I kept trying, all of a sudden I could unlock my hip and then rotate even further, and it let me face what I was doing. So something that I'm definitely going to look into, and I'm going to try to see how I can incorporate it and use it to my advantage moving forward. So take a look and see if that works for you. So thank you, Todd. That was a fantastic tip. And that was one of those moments where I thought, this is one of those things that I'm for sure going to be using for months to come. So it's actually a couple of days after I finished recording that video, but I really wanted to add this tip. This was from our time up at the West Isles Symposium in New Brunswick. We were playing in currents, ferrying across, going from an eddy out into the current, turning around, coming back in, cutting into the current, rolling, coming back out, seeing how far down you would get pushed down if you rolled in the current. And one of the tips Chris had for us, which was awesome, was trying to do some of those exercises with your eyes closed. It's incredible how much more information you get by closing your eyes and really paying attention to what the kayak and the water is doing by feel only. Because a lot of times with our eyes open, we focus so much on what's happening around us that we're not actually paying attention to a lot of those little minute details. And it was very, very cool to see that I was actually more successful doing some of those exercises with my eyes closed than open, because I was paying attention to what the water was doing to my kayak. Another cool thing that happened was I was able to tell what direction I was pointing at just by feeling the sun on my face, and that was just very cool. So I hope that was helpful. This has been a fantastic year. I learned so much. I hope that I can continue to share as much knowledge as I can. Actually, there's going to be a big announcement coming up in the next couple of weeks of how I'm going to be trying to expand this channel. Keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for your support. Subscribe if you'd like. I'm always trying to put these videos out, and as always, Luke from Kayak Hipster. See you next time.